Okay, great. Just checking. Just checking. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Salinas-Lazarski. I'm the Associate Dean of Arts and Sciences downstairs in E103, and I love this topic. We're going to talk about active learning today. I love this topic because I'm a young administrator, but my career started as an adjunct. I was an English adjunct, and I found myself in administration. And one of my favorite parts of being a dean is observing faculty, particularly adjunct faculty, and doing whatever I can to pay it forward and help support adjunct faculty in their pedagogy and however else I can support them. And one of the things I found, if any of you have observed classes, you've probably seen this too, is that observing classes has elucidated for me the idea that there is one thing that is a prerequisite for everything, for any kind of learning that goes on here at the college. There's one thing. All of our jobs, we're all in this room right now because we're dedicated and we work towards student learning. There's one thing that underlies and is important to all of that. And I came to that realization, you didn't think about that, we'll get to that in a minute. I came to that realization because I would observe many classes where the instructor would have a PowerPoint on and would be sitting over here. And I don't know how many of you can hear me right now as I'm talking. You've seen that. You've got to have seen it. Have to have sat in classes like that before, right? And we know, we've seen it so often that we know that that strategy is entrenched and has been entrenched. And 40, 50 years ago, I imagine a lot of teaching was done that way. Maybe not with PowerPoint, but in a similar vein. We know that's not what we do anymore. It's not the kind of teaching that we're looking for because, most importantly, that's not the kind of teaching that our students are looking for, right? With my mentor, she said this to me over and over again. This will always stick to me. I love it. We want rabbits, but we have squirrels. Anyone know what that means? No? We want rabbits, but we have squirrels. Okay? We need to stop worrying about teaching the students that we want and teach the students that we have. You know, the idea of approaching students where they're at, figuring out how to engage them, you know, all this research coming out about the conversation about the millennial generation, etc. How do we reach them, okay? And so, for me, that's the basis of where I come from with this topic. Someone tell me about a great class that you taught or attended and what made it great and what the class was about. There's not a single person here that's ever taught or attended a great class. We're all in higher ed. So I know that's not true. Okay? So I'm going to prep you. We're in here for another 55 minutes. I would not be a responsible, ethical educator if I didn't have a bunch of active learning planned in a presentation on active learning. So be ready to talk, okay? We're going to do active learning in here because I would be a punk if I was just going to sit here and lecture to you about active learning. It just does not compute. So, real quick to kick us off, someone have a great class that they taught or attended. Give me 2 sentences. Yes.
Yes, hi. I teach English as a second language, and I was teaching a class on past tense in English, simple past tense. And what I did is I asked students to form like 6 sentences, 3 using the irregular and 3 using the regular past tense. And they did this on a sheet and they handed it in and I checked their work. And then I cut this into little like flashcards. And I got students to line up on opposite sides of like a row of tables. And on one side sat students who taught the verbs to the other students.
I love this.
And then, so they went through a round or two of that, and then the people who were learning got up and shifted down a person. So they got another set of verbs. And you could tell students were really fun because they felt, it was something different. They felt empowered. They were still learning, and I enjoyed it because I think they enjoyed it and learned from it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. What's your name?
Carol Baki.
Carol. Thank you for being here, Carol. Do you have one for us?
It's one that I've done with all age groups. I'm a former public school teacher, most of my years in middle school, but also elementary. And I've also used this strategy with students here at Triton. It's called A and B Partners. And I give them a topic or a sentence or a question to discuss with a partner. They have to identify who's A, who's B. And then I time them. And gradually the time gets less and less and less. So we do like 3 rounds of A shares with B, B shares with A. I think I said that right. Anyway, what's fun about it is they start getting aggravated that I'm not giving them more time. They want to talk more with their partners. So
Cool.
Really get some discussing and talking. I have them sit to do that, but it could be done standing up.
What kinds of things are they talking about?
Well, I haven't done it this year, but this semester. But last semester I was teaching a language activities class. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something related to the topic or chapter that we were working on that particular night or day.
So that's kind of like the mind game of what a great active learning strategy can do is whatever it is, that topic, probably not what students are talking about at home when they're going and hanging out with their friends, but you can trick them and get them engaged such that they're like, no, I want to talk more about this. I want to do more about this. No, let's talk more about verbs. Who says that?
Yeah.
Like, that's what a really good, solid teaching activity can do. Those are great examples. The one I give is when I student taught high school, I taught Catcher in the Rye, and the final activity was we had 5 different roles, and we were discussing the outcome of the main character after the story. There was like the lawyer for the parents, the psychologist, the teacher, his best friend, and each student had a role, and we had a fishbowl. So we had a circle of dust in the middle and a circle around the outside. Inside, we had one representative from each of them, and I would give them questions. Should Holden be committed? How long before he should go back to school? And they would have to assume that character and argue based on that point of view. And after a couple questions, we would swap people in and out. Everyone had so much fun that you forget you're in a class, right? It's that cool of an activity. So we're going to dive into some of these today. And the way that I design these presentations that I do here in the CT is I assume that you're all amazing teachers. I'm just here to help and to reinforce ideas and to remind you of some things. So for this, I call it the Active Learning Toolbox. We're just talking about tools that you already have in your toolbox. Maybe you forgot about that and you're just like, oh yeah, I can use that maybe next week. My goal here is we could talk all day about theory. I don't want to do that. I want to equip you or re-equip you, because you may know about a lot of these, with practical ideas and tools that you can bring directly into the classroom tonight, even if you needed to, if you got an idea, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about 3 things. First of all, we're going to talk about types of teaching really quick. Then we're going to talk about lecturing. And then we're going to move on to our active learning. So that's our outcome. Hey, people in the room, write on the board what you're going to do each day for your students so they see it before they come in. That's a good one. Yeah, I would do that. So always try and give them a menu and a preview of what's coming up. Okay. What is this? Has anyone ever seen this before? Yes. Okay. Can someone explain it to me? The learning pyramid. If you Google learning pyramid, there's about 50 different versions of this. Yes.
I'm probably not going to say this right, but really, it's where the most learning occurs is down at the bottom of the pyramid.
Yeah.
Through, so it gradually moves up to the point where with lecture, the least amount of learning.
Yeah, right. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a think, pair, share. Okay. So what's a think, pair, share? Can someone tell me? Anyone in the back?
It's where you first talk with a partner and then you share out.
First, you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, you were 66% right. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think for a minute. Is this true? Why or why not? So I'll give you 30 to 45 seconds to think about it. Then you and your partner at the table, your tables, you're going to talk about it. Is it true? Why or why not? What is the truth in this? And then we'll share out. Okay? Ready? So silently thinking.
Wait.
Yes.
Could you just briefly read those? I have a
You
visual
bet.
problem at the moment.
I'm sorry, yeah. So students retain 90, according to this is postulating that students retain 90% of what they teach to others, 75% of what they practice doing, 50% of what they discuss, 30% through what they see in demonstrations, 20% through audio-visual means like videos, 10% through reading, and very little, there's not even a percentage for lecture. Okay? So go ahead, let's think about this. And then when I give you a cue, talk about it at your tables. Okay, now that you've thought about it, turn to your partners at your tables and share what you were thinking about this.
I mean, I definitely feel like there's some truth to it. But I also feel like there's a time and place for those teaching methodologies because we don't have the foundation. And that's how you teach. So like, I feel like there's, like, I that's how you agree. But you have to get to the point where that's exactly my take on it, because I agree that we learn the best when we teach others, because that's what but you can't just start with just teach others. Right. So, yeah, more all of those things are necessary. I'm just my yeah. Right. That's a good analogy. And you're going to start reading and you're going to like cultivate it. Right. I know. So I wouldn't skip any of those.
Yeah.
Don't stop much on the lecture. But this is
I think
right. But then they reinforce it. Right. And they listen to it. And you know, and discussion and practice. Yeah. Trying to skip all of those steps and just trying to teach others. Yeah. How do you learn? You have to go through how successful all these other steps are. You still need to go through in order for you to yeah. I agree. Like as much as I want to get into students, like I can't.
Demonstrate it for me. Act it out. Or give it
Like it's still, but it's still there because like I can't just the problem is I can't track hear about it enough or see one of the video of it and the teacher so you can't let go. I really just I don't think you can and I do yeah. I think the key is to keep them straight. So maybe.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right,
right.
And that's exactly what I Yeah.
You do.
Very strong opinion. We have a very strong
You
opinion.
That's great. I love that. I either really agree or disagree with you.
Well, I don't see.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put, yeah, I want to hear about that. Let's do it. We bring it back, we come slowly back to the front. Come slowly back to the front. I know you really want to keep talking about learning. See, I just did, that's exactly what you're talking about. And then I can't bring your attention up here because you're like, stop it, we're talking about learning over here. It's awesome. It's so cool. Okay. Yeah, it's really great and cool. Kind of manipulative, but like for ethical means. So, okay. So is this true? Why not? So what? I want to share. I want you to share with the group, and we want to hear what you said. We had a strong opinion or opinions at this table, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so, our opinion, well, we might differ on some points, but
Yeah.
pretty much we are on the same page. We agree with what the pyramid is showing us, but we also think that you cannot, even though maybe the lecture is the least effective, we're still proponents of the lecture and all of the other steps. You cannot simply skip all of the other steps and teach to others if you don't have that foundation. So, when I'm lecturing, I say to my students, I'm planting that little seed. Now you're going to go home, you're going to read about it. Maybe you will listen and look at some videos, right? Demonstration, discussion later on, practice. And then finally you will be able to teach others, and maybe that's when the material will eventually start making really, sense to you.
Yeah.
But it's impossible for you to skip all of those other steps and just jump into teaching others.
That's a great point. It's kind of like a hierarchy.
Exactly.
Like one thing builds on
Like
another
Bloom's
thing.
taxonomy.
Like Bloom's taxonomy.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That you kind of start at the lower level and then you get, to more advanced levels.
Right, exactly, because this thing kind of demonizes the stuff up here and kind of suggests, oh, you should just be teaching students by having them teach stuff to others. But it's like they can't do that if they don't know the material all you have to build. That's a great point. Yeah. Any other? What did you in the back talk about?
We mostly agreed, but I think, we had a discussion a little bit about how maybe the values might change, or, I was thinking the values would change by teaching method, depending on the discussion or the topic or the subject. But then also, we also made the point that it was that it's much more static than, this makes it look much more, fixed in terms of how it works, but then, much more static in terms of how it actually works.
Yeah.
We ultimately agreed that the teaching of others was the ultimate sort of mode for learning,
Mhm.
and that's something we're building towards, or always working towards.
We had a conversation the other day, Tina. We were talking about teaching English, and we mentioned that we really mastered grammar when we had to stand in front of a classroom and teach it. Yeah. So there's certainly some truth to that. Yeah. Any other comments that the other tables want to make about this? That hasn't already been said?
Well, we came up with a conclusion to make that lecture more effective, like insert a little bit of everything, in between that lecture. Don't just lecture for 2 hours, right? A little bit of everything.
Perfect. Yes, right. And you're talking about what I'm going to say in 10 minutes anyway, so good point.
Mary would completely disagree with what I have to say.
Wonderful.
But that's just Mary Wood. But no, we had a really nice lively discussion, but what I wanted to say something separate from what we didn't say is that one of the beautiful things about the learning pyramid is that it has a lot of different ways of teaching and learning, and we have to remember that in the classroom sometimes we have different learners, right? And some students are visual learners, some learn by doing, some need to be taught to, some need to be shared. And so what I like about that is that it does cover everything. And I like specifically in my role as a dean, when I've gone to classrooms, and I love when instructors put their agenda on the board. Today we're gonna cover 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. And I love it when instructors say, I'm gonna talk a little bit, and then you're gonna discuss in groups, and then we're gonna share the ideas, and then we're gonna come back and see how it applies to what I taught. And I love it because then you cover certain points, and you did a little bit of everything, and it covers everyone in the classroom, because everyone learns in a different way. We know that everyone's a different learner. We've already. I just like that it covers everybody. It touches upon everyone.
And not only is everyone a slightly different learner, because there's been a lot of discussion about how valid the learning style thing is. What's my more important takeaway for me is that the human brain learns knowledge better when it ingests that knowledge in different ways. So yeah, everyone learns a little differently, but we all learn something better when we listen to a lecture about it, do an activity about it, see a demonstration. When you're seeing those concepts reinforced in multiple different ways, the research shows that leads to better student retention, learner retention. Yeah. So to bring this up, I just got myself a cup of coffee. At my last school, this was hanging up over the coffee machine in the dean's office. And so I had much time to sit and ponder it. And you all said a lot of the stuff that I would say. One of the things that you should know about this is it's bogus. So these percentages are meaningless. There's zero research to back this up, okay? And like I said, if you Google this, you will find so many different different variations on this. This says source, National Training Laboratories, Bethel, Maine. Try Googling that and see what comes up. Nothing's going to come up. I've done it before, okay? However, this is such a great activity because I think we're all in agreement that every single one of these things, a good teacher is going to incorporate every single one of these things into their teaching, no matter what they teach or what grade level they teach or what level they teach, right? And so in that sense, this is a really important tool that we can use and learn from, just as long as you realize that the numbers mean absolutely nothing. So what did we just do? I love getting meta. What did we just do? We just did the think, pair, share, right? So we just did what you were talking about. I lectured for a little bit. I just lectured literally 10 seconds ago, and before that, we were doing a think, pair, share. So what was this activity like for you all?
Very engaging.
Okay, why?
Well, for me anyway, we just weren't sitting and listening, to the teacher talk. We were able to talk to each other. We were able to process that information in our own way, and then you straighten us out.
But realistically, I feel like what made this exercise successful is that we are comfortable talking to each other. And I feel like sometimes that's the main obstacle that I see in my classrooms, that students, especially in the beginning of the semester, if I don't allow them those opportunities to get to know each other, they're just not comfortable talking to each other.
Yeah, but that's a great point. But before that, I did something to make you uncomfortable. What was that?
Quiet us down or something?
Silence. I talked about this in my, if anyone came to my presentation, I'll do it again later in the semester on critical thinking and using questions. Silence is such a powerful tool in the classroom because no one wants it. Right? It's awkward. We notice it. We live in 24/7, like we're surrounded by media. It's odd for us, but the thinking part is important. You're just sitting there and contemplating. It's not really something we really value to do in our Western society, and that's an important part of this, because I had you stare at that thing for 90 seconds in silence and think about it. And then you had ideas formulated, ready to go. You weren't just like thinking off the top of your head. Then we came back here, okay? kind of, the I, you, we type thing. So think for sure, just put this slide in here to show you that, like, we just did an active learning thing. You call it really engaging, it allowed you to build a connection with a colleague, and you can use a think, pair, share about any topic in your class, from math to education to health careers, whatever it is. You can throw something new up on the screen, say, think about this, okay, talk about it, now bring it back, and then I'll straighten you out, as she said. Yeah. So let's contrast that. We're going to contrast that with how we do it, half an hour. So I want to get to this part in the next 5 or 10 minutes. So we have a big activity coming up that I want to do for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and share. Okay? So, someone help me out. Pros and cons of lecturing. You're all going to get the PowerPoint, by the way, so you can refer back to it later, because I want to give you tools. That's part of the thing that I see as my job as a dean. Pros and cons of lecturing. What's lecturing good for?
Breaking down the different concepts or terminology in the class.
Okay. Yeah. So delivering, straight delivery
Or
of information.
introducing a specific topic.
Good. Introducing a topic, yeah.
I was thinking giving an overview of the topic.
Okay. Overview of a topic. Again, breaking things down, giving an overview, general knowledge.
Yeah, I use it to model my thinking. Modeling.
Oh, that's a great answer. I'm so glad you said. Talk more about that for a second.
So students don't necessarily know how to, like you say, break something down unless you show them. So first you tell them, here's what we need to do, here's how we're going to do it. And so talking through that,
Yeah.
even though I'm up in front of the class lecturing, that then gives them that example.
I'm just going to go for it. Yeah. Demonstrate. This is my table. Demonstrates a scholarly mind at work. I love that, because so many of our students, especially when we talk about our student population, so many first generation students, minority students who do not come from academic backgrounds, usually it's part of our job, and it's almost like a soft skill when we talk about soft skill development, to demonstrate critical thinking, to demonstrate the logical path of how you get to this point, because on the flip side of that, we also need to correct our students' thinking when we realize, okay, you were thinking about X, Y, and Z, but it's actually not this Y, it's this Y. You know what I mean? So yeah, lecturing does demonstrate a scholarly mind at work, provides an organizing structure for material, takes the burden off of students. What that means is you're doing all the work. They're not doing any of the work, right? And part of what I see as good active learning, employing good active learning is I don't usually say this, but the teacher should be doing less of the work. Really good teachers who've been doing it for a long time, they're like, I don't do the majority of the work in my classroom. And you shouldn't be. You should be a facilitator. And this is part of what we're doing here, is talking about these individual tools that you can put in place and get good at using and employing to make that happen. But lecturing also doesn't engage students. We know that when you're talking for 10, 15 minutes, what are our students doing? On the phone. They're sleeping, right? I'm not missing with active learning because I don't want you all to zone out on me, and we're all higher educators, right? And that goes back to the one thing that I was saying at the beginning. What's the one thing that's a precursor for any learning at the college? Engagement. If they're not paying attention to you, they're not learning. Doesn't matter, nothing else. Anything else could happen in the classroom. If they're not paying attention, it does not matter at all, right? So if you're going to lecture the whole time, you're not keeping them engaged. This is a good one as far as equity. Lecturing assumes fairly equal ability levels among students. Anyone say lecture on a point and then go, any questions? You say that, any questions? How often does that get a hand raised? No. Oh, I'm the dummy who doesn't understand. Call on me. So no. People don't do that. They're not going to admit that. They really don't, you know. And you don't see that your students inside are such different ability levels. So while you realize that it's good at lecturing, is good at doing an overview or introducing that information, then you need to go in, like Rick said, and give and start employing other active learning throughout the class, because active learning is the thing that engages students, it builds those connections, and really it makes impressions on students. Those students are going to remember teaching irregular, the past tense verbs to their colleagues. You know, you remember a good class. It makes an impression on you, and you're like, I remember that thing. That's cool. Okay. So that's why we do it. So we're getting close to activity time. Oh wait, that was the slide I thought was happening. Here's lecturing strategies. If you're going to do it, use an attention grabber, an outline, include active learning throughout, like you were saying, mixing it up, employ strategic questioning, which is scheduled in the CTE in October, so be on the lookout for that. And then keep lecture segments at 10 to 20 minutes if possible. One of the things when I was observing faculty, this was a criteria on the rubric at my other school. Exhibits, this is talking about the instructor, exhibits the ability to determine whether or not students understand the material. And when I had an instructor that was lecturing for at least a half an hour, they would get poor to very poor on this almost every time. You know, because if you're saying any questions, that's not exhibiting an ability to understand whether or not that they're understanding you, right? It's taking the easy way out. So you need to mix in active learning, part of that is formative assessment. We will talk about that. So how do you do that? How do you do it? Active learning. What is this? I'll read it for Carol. Lesson objectives, introductory activity, direct instruction, guided practice, independent practice, assessment, closure. We've got a K through 12.
Is that a Madeline Hunter's model of a lesson?
I don't know if it's hers, but it's like a generally accepted lesson plan. So
Right.
yes, not always talked about a lot at the college level though, right? Who does this for every lesson that you teach? Why are you
I
shrugging?
don't know if it's every lesson, but I do it a lot.
You do it a lot, but you
I
probably,
mean-
and you don't write it out probably. You
No,
probably have it
it's
up here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because when you're teaching, it's your profession, you do it over and over again, you realize, I gotta hit these points throughout my lesson. How do you decide what goes where? How do you build a lesson? There's one general technique that people use, if anyone can shout it out.
The scaffold. Given an objective, you kind of start at the basic to lead students into
Into what?
conclusions.
Conclusion.
What you want them to learn.
Yeah, okay. So you figure out what you want them to learn,
Start the assessment.
and then you work backwards design, then you work backwards. Everyone know the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Yeah, I love that book. One of the habits is you start with the end in mind. Figure out where you want to be, and then you work backwards from there. So way to design a lesson is start with the student learning outcomes. They're on your syllabi. You know exactly what they are, and your students know what they are. Then you figure out what skills and knowledge you need to have to achieve those student learning outcomes. Then you build a course content and activities based on that. This could be a map for an entire course or for one single lesson, okay? So you really got to focus on what are your student learning outcomes, okay? So now with that as the basis, I want to move into what that I've got 15 active learning strategies here. Okay. I'm gonna let you look at this while I pass out some handouts. Okay. Anyone recognize any of these? You should recognize at least one of them, because we've done at least one of them already today, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone recognize any other ones?
Muddy point, I mean, I
So,
kind of recognize a lot of
no,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
What's the muddiest point?
So the muddiest point is when you have students identify, like you're talking about a specific concept and you have students identify something that they're maybe like having a hard time understanding,
Cool.
or they're struggling maybe.
Yeah. Any other ones that we recognize? You want to say that? Yeah.
Checking prior knowledge, I used to do something called a knowledge reading, which we would do before a lesson. You have kids present some terms or words or ideas and ask kids to rate how much they knew, if anything, about the particular topic. Or I remember doing it specifically with vocabulary words sometimes.
And rating how well they knew the vocabulary.
If they knew it, thought they knew it, saw it somewhere, didn't know it at all,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Right. Cool. Any other ones?
Mini presentation,
Yeah.
that would kind of be like just, assigning a discussion leader
Yeah.
for each class or.
And they could either present from their tables or you
Right.
could make them get up in
Exactly.
front. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. Great. Any ones up here that you have no idea what it's talking about? Analyze an example, case study. Case study, real world narratives. Depends on what discipline you're in, but real world narratives, you can find them, give the narrative to a student. In math, these are called word problems. Give them to a student, and then have them try to apply the concepts they've learned, either with prompting or without it, about how to solve the problem. Check prior knowledge, take a class survey, okay? Raise your hand if this has happened to you, okay? Or do Kahoot, you put that up and you put a question and have them all log in on their phones. Create a narrative. You can tell a story either as a class or yourself, or have them build on the story. Discuss learning outcomes. This isn't usually one that we think about, but you've got them all in the syllabi. That's the contract. They know what they're supposed to accomplish by the end of the class. Are we doing this in this class, this learning outcome? What activities have we done the last 2 weeks to help you build this learning outcome, right? Go back to that. Draw a concept map, play a game, hands-on learning, mini presentations, model studying, okay? When you're going home, I know you're all worried for the test on Monday. Here's how I would study, okay? I would do X and Y and Z. How are you studying? How are you studying? That's a great technique. Maybe use that. Muddiest point we talked about, 1 minute paper, okay? Give them a prompt, like everyone take out a sheet of paper. I want you to write for 1 minute, 1 minute on this, okay? Reflecting on their own learning is really good, kind of like the learning outcomes. And we've got think, pair, share down here. So here's what we're gonna do. I want you, in your tables, you each have a lesson plan, okay? So you've got the course, you've got the subject of the lesson objectives. Here's what I really need you to fill out. I need you to pick a subject for the lesson at your table. Doesn't matter. Don't spend too much time on it. Just pick something. If you can't think of anything, do the quadratic equation or thesis statements or the Battle of Antietam. Okay, in the Civil War, whatever, it can be anything, okay? Then, what you're gonna do is, as a group, you're gonna create a lesson. So you've got a list here. I don't have lecture here, You can put a mini lecture as one of them somewhere if you want, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're going to take these and plug them in here. So you're gonna figure out which of these active learning strategies go in the parts of our lesson plan that we discussed, okay? Does anyone have any questions? Okay, we're gonna do this for about 7 minutes to give us time to wrap up, so go to it.
We wanted, so I just thought about assessment today in my class. Okay, can I do that? Okay. So of course, it's PC 142.
We have 2 brains here.
Which is.
So let's pick something.
Yeah, it's about the exceptional child, yeah.
Something that's not.
Yep, exactly. So the subject was. Okay, here we go. So like one of the objectives was, like what is assessment, defining assessment, like actually defining it, because even though my students learned in other.
The big focus of the activity is looking at the activity and figuring out what best goes where.
Okay.
Right? So that's the important part. The subject is just.
So we got.
Right, and then like, so.
Intersection of the.
Right, and then so like, what is assessment, and then there was just training capability, and then, so.
That would be.
Then we talked about, like types of assessment strategies.
What goes where.
Yeah, so what is that?
So the objective is to.
Give examples. Situations.
And then we talked about like variations with different student populations, right? We're not done, it's just like, we're having another, but that's just kind of, just for one class, yeah, that's a lot, yeah. So my introductory activity was the check prior knowledge. So I wanted to kind of see, get a baseline for what it is at. So I have them. Basically think about all the stuff we use so far about assessment.
Let's do
And then.
direct instruction.
And then they like
So
found
this would be like maybe.
someone to share that.
You mean in
So they did like a.
What-
Like it was
Not all of
like.
them are graded. Not all of them are graded
direct instruction?
Well, it was mainly in pairs, like, cause they, like, I also had. like,
Need a guided
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you should put. And then.
Game, guided practice.
And then I had them get up, because we prior to starting our discussion, we were writing up something on it, so they were sitting and writing their reflections, so then I had them get up and like move around, to find something, because I.
Yeah, I was looking for this, but.
Okay,
So I
guided
do like
practice would
break
be.
things where we have to speak up and
Yeah.
like, because your brain's falls to the so based on like. Some of my students don't like it, but I hold them to their own. Okay, direct instruction. So then, once I got the like, yeah, so it was a mini lecture. It was a mini, yeah. It was a mini lecture.
I think check
It was
it
just,
out.
yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, so, I kind of gave them some different, like, definitions of amusement, and then. Right, exactly, exactly. So then,
right
um, the next time we meet, we're gonna do guided practice.
I think that's just so great.
So, it's hard to do all this in one
Do
time.
you really?
We didn't do the whole pattern assessment, because we were wrapping up some other things. But we have time to do it all. So then, for guided practice, I'm gonna have.
Yeah.
They're going, I think,
It's not like I don't know.
it's gonna be something like a case study or like something where they're gonna like read and then like answer questions or do something like where it's more on that, you know, it's more like,
Independent, reflect, or put some.
I mean,
Yeah.
What about analyzing
example?
there you go. Yeah, that's good, yeah.
You're looking out for how am I going to.
So show them an example.
Yep.
Of what's in the page
Yeah,
now.
and then they have to kind of, yeah,
That would be the straight.
okay, and then it's kind of
Assessment,
practice.
reflecting, as a student, so we will assessment.
Not even one of
Draw a diagram, discuss it.
No, I'm thinking of that one where
Maybe
We're
I
gonna
would do,
soldiers kissing the nurse. So what if people?
well, I guess for the assessment piece, we could do it like.
Or the assessment could be the survey or
Reflect on learning. Cause I'm probably, I'll probably have them do a poll everywhere, that's like reflect on learning,
Because they apply a
Yeah.
learned concept.
for the assessment, reflect on learning, cause.
So then the survey would be like a closure? Or would it?
Yeah. Yeah. Coming back.
One I like is reflecting.
Yeah, she like.
It depends on learning.
Pick one or the other. Or you could do both.
Because it is, I think it's. I don't know if I would have to do it in one But it's actually, right.
Yeah.
Right. So, the closure,
Maybe reflection is a closure, and then
the assessment,
right?
a game.
Or
So the assessment would be a game.
Yeah,
So the assessment would be the game
It is a
because
competition.
they can pull everywhere, it's like a game, you know, it's like that
What's the prize?
responsive.
What do
There are
we
no
do?
prizes of credit.
That's, it's informal.
Yeah.
Cause, so informal, you know,
So you have.
that's one method that I use, so.
I just feel that.
And then
somewhere
closure
in
can be
the
reflective.
Discussion about what learning outcomes of the class of the course are, what the students want to. Somewhere in there.
It's a lot.
Yeah, somewhere in there, up there, top, you want to put like, by the way, this is what we want to learn. So this one.
Our top
up here is one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Well, thanks for playing along with my
You have two classroom courses, one course is that. You could put them both too. I don't know.
Yours. I know.
Like, just like.
So you're in the
We teaching.
I know, I mean, you're in some of my classes.
But are we teaching, do you think that we
I
have?
mean, I'm trying to
In your
model
mind, you
the
said.
appropriate strategy. So I'm using young children.
See, I was looking at it like, hey, like, they were even talking about portion wrong and right.
Yeah.
So the outcomes is that I want you to learn something about.
Yeah.
Techniques about what good portrait is, so let's listen to a good one.
Yes.
And then it's like,
In my intro classes,
so good portrait is this.
like in my intro ones, I would say they're like,
Now, just get with your partner and talk a little bit about what is the
but in
concept
my,
that you have.
like in this class, I have.
We're one more minute, or less than a minute.
Yeah. But in some of our classes.
This portrait right there, a sample.
Yeah, because, you know, it depends on what long-term goals are, yeah.
And then
And could you attend?
Get in my transfer, I mean, there's like a lot.
How about everybody take a step?
But yeah,
Force
15
me
is
to
actually
pull
a
on.
good number for like a.
I like you.
Or again, just noon. What about yours?
And now let's analyze what we talked about.
I like this.
You know,
Yeah.
uh,
We could switch off.
Or two.
Or section of Monday.
Okay, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to the front slowly, slowly drawing your attention back to the voice at the front of the room. Slowly bringing, now more quickly bringing your attention back to the voice of the. Fantastic. Did you enjoy this?
Yes.
Why?
Well, we took something that we're not really too familiar with, and then we're able to really then design a course, a class.
Like a lesson.
You have it done on, you literally have a lesson done on paper right there, right?
On a topic that we just really pulled.
That you pulled from the ether.
How to
And
raise
now-
kids.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Good. Wow. Yeah, right.
Take your time.
I failed it.
I will learn a lot.
Um,
55 minutes.
Sign me up.
So I also have, this is kind of cute, I also have, this is our toolbox, right? This is the active learning toolbox. And a toolbox is full of tools, and you pull each tool out for the proper occasion. This activity is trying to teach us that each one of these has one or more occasions where it's effective to use it in the classroom, and that's what we're practicing, and that's what this activity was practicing. Sound like you all did an awesome job, and you maybe even have a lesson that you can use right now. Just to kind of double back on this activity, let's do it by looking at these two or three questions. What are one or two strategies from a list that are effective at introducing new concepts? So ones that you use maybe as an introductory activity, or direct instruction.
That's what we,
What? Which one?
check prior knowledge.
Check prior knowledge. Okay, yeah, good.
Creation.
Create a narrative. Good. Yeah, tell a story about them. Good. What are one or two strategies that are effective for practicing concepts?
Analyze an example.
Analyze an example. Good.
Case study.
Case study. Concept map is a good one. Good. What are one or two strategies that are effective for formative assessment? I would typo there. Formative assessment.
I put a game, like Pull Everywhere or Kahoot.
Good. Yeah, doing a game. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Reflection. We do a formal assessment.
Formative assessment.
Formative.
Yeah.
Reflection.
Reflection, see what they learned, what they still feel that they're not comfortable with. Good. You could also do a case study or analyze an example as a form of assessment. Like, okay, we talked about this all class. Now I'm going to put this photograph up out in front of everyone. Now you sit there and write down some observations and analyze it, and then we'll see how you're doing. Good. Yeah. So you can see these can be, and some of them can be applied a lot, like in multiple different areas. Like think, pair, share, you could stick into any one of these, right? Some of them are more versatile than others. We have just a couple minutes. Group work. So we did a lot of group work today. How does group work enhance student learning? What do you get out of it?
Students can scaffold other students.
Uh-huh.
They learn just to work with others, soft skills.
Yeah.
Sometimes they learn better from each other than from the teacher.
Sometimes they learn better from each other than from the teacher.
Or it reinforces the lesson sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The instructor said it, now the student said it again. Or they show you another avenue to get there.
Yeah. And it puts the onus on them. If I'm up here in the front, and I'm talking, none of you have to say anything. If I stick you all in groups, you have to talk. You are the action agents, right? If I'm up here at the front, all the action's on me, all the direction's on me. So we talked about there are a lot of different ways that you could do group work with any number of these. That's one of the cool things that they're really versatile because you could do a case study. Let's all do a case study, do it individually, or do it in groups. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to employ these active learning strategies. But really, if you're doing in groups and you're doing less of the work, they're doing more of the work. They're going to learn more. Okay. Remember, when you're doing group work, you want to make sure that this is from my last school. This is the rubric. Are the groups advancing the course objectives as appropriate? Is the instructor helping the groups to organize? You don't want to waste a whole lot of time or getting people settled. Have an organizing idea in your head. Clarify the directions, check on the progress, and announce time intervals. If you were checking or keeping track, I did all these things. Thank you. So we go back. We come back to where we started, the learning period. Any other comments on the learning period now in light of what? Or someone tell me something about the learning period in light of our list and the activity that we did. How is this list engaging the learning period? Pyramid.
Some of these activities do that, or multiple of those things at the same time.
That's really good to know. Yeah. So you can be strategic, and the more you use them, you can realize that different activities are allowing students to learn in multiple ways. But it goes back to the point that we started out with early in the class, is your students learn more when you're engaging them in multiple different ways, okay? So we're going to wrap up. What's one thing you learned today?
The learning pyramid is.
The learning pyramid is bogus? If that's your takeaway, at least you're remembering the learning pyramid. I'll take that. Something else we learned today?
Active learning strategies matter.
Thank you. That warms my heart. That means that we had a productive day. Thank you. Thank you, person who's not in the classroom this semester. Anything else?
The think, pair, and share. That was new. Like follow those steps.
Yeah, that's a really easy one to have. And if you don't know what to do, if you're like caught off guard or something, that's one that you can pull out in any class and get them to do. What's one thing you'd like to understand more?
I would like to understand more how to bridge the gap between students being responsible for content. I often feel I have to talk more because assigned readings haven't been done. And then therefore, if I'm going to get up and teach a lesson or guide a lesson on content that they should be at least somewhat familiar with, and they're not, it's just the biggest challenge of all. I don't know what to do about that.
That one's really difficult, yeah.
It's hard.
Perennial
It's
problem.
very hard.
Yes, in the back.
Well, so at least part of that, so what I've started to do a little bit more in my classes is like, I have them do adaptive assignments online. So I would assign them to be due before we start the class. That way then they have this come in with some prior knowledge coming in. So half of them will be doing the assignments, hopefully at least the way it's intended. So then it kind of bridges a little bit of that, and then during the class time we can clarify things. And so that kind of helps us a little bit with it. I mean, it's not really good. At least it kind of gets, at least I know what, things that I can assign things out. That helps a little bit. This question is reflecting on learning, right? Reflecting on learning. What didn't you understand? Want to understand more? This is a great thing to do at the end of class. Have everyone just rip a sheet of paper out. Be like, what's one thing you want to understand more today? Write it down, leave it face down on the desk in the back when you're leaving, and then you can collect all those anonymously. Because when you say any questions and people don't raise your hand,
that doesn't mean that they don't have questions. So if you give them an honest out, that lets them do that, okay? We're almost done. I left this at each table for you. This is a document I created, and we've been giving, when the DLS and signs off, and when we interview adjuncts, we've been handing this. This is an even longer list of active learning strategies, okay? So your homework is, please just go through this and review it, okay? That's all I'm asking you to do, is just keep a hold of this and look at it and keep it in your mind. I've also got formative and summative assessment on here. And then in the back, we've got student retention strategies, student engagement strategies, and then the different campus resources that are free for our students to use. So please just, if I ask you to do one thing, just take like 5 or 10 minutes to really go through this at some point this week, hopefully in the next day or two, while some of this stuff is still fresh in your head, okay? The last thing I just want to say, my final point, is be creative. My favorite part of teaching is figuring out how to create creative lessons that I know I'm going to engage students and really give them experiences they're going to remember, because if they remember it, that means they've learned it. My name is Derek Salinas-Lazarski. I'm the Associate Dean of Arts and Sciences. I have more presentations up here in the CTE. Thank you to Shelley and Aaron and Keisha for letting me do this. Thank you all for coming, and look forward to talking to you more about this or anything else if you would like. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Okay?
I don't understand